Hi you guys, my name is Oshun the Great, and welcome to my beautiful channel. Today I kind of want to just talk about the male gaze. I know this is a huge topic for women all around the internet right now. A lot of women are breaking down the male gaze and how women are conditioned in our society to kind of just cater to the wants of men, and how a lot of young women are trying to learn to decenter ourselves from that. And I also want to talk about having both beauty and brains, because I think this is an important topic. Because when I was growing up, I very much so I come from a very religious background. I consider myself a very eclectic person, but I come from a very religious background. I'm from the hood, and I'm a mix of a lot of experiences, but very much so when I grew up, especially growing up in Florida. A lot of women are taught to be like soft, to prioritize men, to not have an opinion, to not speak our mind. So growing up, I always joke that I didn't know were allowed to be funny. I didn't know we could have our own say. Your main goal was to take up as little space as possible. And so a lot of people are surprised when I tell them that when I joined Islam, the year that I joined Islam in LA, when I was living there for a little bit, in my nomad chronicles, my Islam teacher actually taught me how to speak up for myself, how to stand up for myself. And a lot of people assume that women in Islam, they are quite subservient, which is still a lot of patriarchy things that go on in that religion, and all religions really. But my teacher at the time, she was pretty radical. She taught me a lot more about Black history than a lot of schools do now. And she taught me how to like stand up and speak for myself, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. And I remember at one point she literally told me, like, you don't even know if you want to live or die, because she saw that my existence was just, I wasn't really existing. I was just like, going with the motion of everyday life. And I think this is the existence that a lot of women find themselves in. Just like that saying, she's a doll. Like, women who appear so pretty and doll like, but they almost lack substance, whether it's just by conditioning and being taught that. And it's a wild concept to try to think of and understand. So it wasn't until I was dating in my early 20s, where I know it took a man to tell me that I was smart, because I remember I was in a car with a guy on the date. And honestly, I used to hide my intelligence. I know that's so crazy, because like, why would you do that? And I remember something in my vocabulary, the word I used slipped out, or like I was trying to like not be too intellectual, and it slipped out. And he was like, you're actually really smart. And it kind of opened my brain. I'm like, oh, I'm allowed to be smart. And I know that's like insane, because like, who needs permission to be smart? But if you're taught your whole life to play small, you don't even realize like how much you close yourself off to being a full person. And yeah, and I remember being mute for most of my youth. So it was a pretty crazy dynamic growing up. And so when I say beauty and brains, having both beauty and brains, even till this day, like when I was in Islam, I wore the hijab and everything for a year. And I found power in covering up. I know that sounds crazy, but it gave me this permission to focus on my intellect, something that's very important to me now. In my early 20s, it was focused on, let me just be a hot model, a hot tattoo model. And that was just so one-dimensional. Like, and I used to like diss my younger self, like, yeah, like when you're young, you're hot, so you're showing your body. But now I see that as a part of me. So when it comes to having both beauty and brains, like that time that I spent in Islam focusing on my intellect, that guy telling me, oh, you're actually smart, that opened up something else. And now, understanding, oh, women can be funny. So it slowly but surely, it all opened up. And there's still so many people who don't want women to be both pretty and smart, because like in patriarchy, oftentimes when you're young, or you're attractive or whatever, or depending how you want to present yourself as like a femme, or whatever role you're playing in life, a lot of people still want to reduce you to just looks or just one category. It's like, you can't, how dare you be both? And that's where I think a lot of things are tricky in our society, of like dating culture or like in the world, because I literally had a guy recently tell me like, you know, like you should have no problems in life because of how you look. And I'm like, bro, you're sadly mistaken. I don't know what planet you live on. And he very much came from the perspective like, you know, if you're a 10, you should have no problem in life. And beauty is subjective, whatever. But you know, those conversations of where people reduce you to just being an object is like insane. And even I had so many, you know, so many men in the manosphere who say if a girl even has Instagram, she's like for the streets. And I'm like, damn, we can't even indulge in like things we like anymore. We can't even take a picture without coming off like we're for the streets. And like, so it's like this, our society and under patriarchy still has this problem with letting women be more than one thing. You're either, it's like that Madonna and that horror complex of like, you know, you can't be both beauty and brains. And even if you show me your intellect, I'm still going to reduce you to an object. So no matter how much you talk, no matter what vocabulary you use, no matter how coherent your statements are, no matter how intellectual you are, no matter how much you read, no matter how much, it seems like in my perspective, even going the intellectual route and prioritizing it, some people just don't want to give you the credit for it as a woman. And then God forbid you take pride in your appearance at all, because there's a lot of labels that come with that too. Like you're vain for caring too much about how you look, if you wear makeup, this and that. And even with that, I had to give myself grace with like, we're alive, why not play with our physical beings while we're here? Though I don't believe in getting too attached to it anymore. But again, the point of embracing both brain and beauty, like even I was watching, I forgot what YouTuber I was watching yesterday, where she was touching on like bubblegum feminism. Like Spice Girls were like bubblegum feminism, where they're very cute and pop and feminine, but they're very much so still feminist. So I guess for me, that's what I think. I just wanted to bring this up today to kind of start a dialogue on these things, like some things that I just noticed about like, and beauty is subjective. Like for me, beauty is something that you have to define for yourself. Like I think it's whatever way you want to show up that makes you feel good and makes you feel comfortable with being yourself. That's what I think beauty is, as opposed to how I approached it in my early 20s. But again, like for example, if you take care of your body, some men might put you in a box, or some people might still put you in a box as, okay, they label that as attractive. In no way can you be attractive and smart and beautiful. Instead of them relaying it as, oh, maybe she actually shows self-love to herself or takes extra care, which is actually a good thing for that person and the connections around them. um so I don't know, it's a lot of dialogue that I feel as a society has to continue to like question when it comes to these things. So yeah, I like that we're having dialogue about the male gaze in our society and how it affects us. And a lot of content that I like consuming now is decentering men, because most of my life was spent putting men on a pedestal. You know, everything we do as women, we are taught to have a man in mind. And so it wasn't until now I'm 30 and I still have so much to learn. It wasn't until now that I allow myself to have a identity, to be an individual, to have likes. And even now, you have to train yourself not to be like, have internalized misogyny and think like, oh, your hobbies don't matter. Who are you to do this and that? And you know, it's still a process. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on the male gaze and having brains and beauty. More videos to come.